From the land of 10,000 lakes and just as many heartaches, welcome to the 301 Show. We're here to celebrate, commiserate, and maybe, just maybe, see a Minnesota team win it all. Whether you're dreaming of a Vikings Super Bowl, reliving the glory days of the Twins, or still recovering from the Timberwolves roller coaster, we've got you covered. This is the 301 Show, where the North remembers and the passion never fades.
Yes, welcome into the 301 Show. Today we've got some great news actually out of Target Field Tigers. And then the Wolves have a really busy upcoming week after a positive past week. And then the Wild finished their 3-game homestand. Maybe a bit of a letdown at the end, but they did finish it. And the Vikings got a big Sunday night win against the Colts, and they got another big game coming up here in Jacksonville. So we will get into all that plus more here on the 301 Show. So let's start with the Target Field Talkers. The good news coming out of the Twins in what seems like a year and for sure an off season of kind of negativity. We do have some positivity here with Carlos Santana winning his first gold glove of his career, which that actually surprised me a lot that it was his first career gold glove award. But definitely didn't surprise me that this season he would have won it. So that I was expecting that with how good he was over at first base for the Twins this year. It's just their he's been, because he was that good, I was expecting him to have won it before, either at the catcher position back when he was in Cleveland or at first base. But he did win it this year, regardless of his past. He beat out Ryan Mountcastle and Nathaniel Lowe, Baltimore and Texas's first basemen. So that was more kind of expected. I at least I personally saw that coming from a mile away for how well he played. The infielders for the Twins this year did seem to have some throwing issues, and it seemed like he was able to, mitigate that damage a lot this past season. So definitely well deserved over there at first base. We do have a couple more news things in the news here for the Twins. The first thing is they declined the team option, the club option on both Kyle Farmer and Manuel Margot. So those two will hit free agency this winter, which we have the winter meetings taking place right now. The GMs are getting together right now. I believe it's down in Texas, maybe. I can't remember exactly where it is, but they are all meeting right now, and this kind of gets you ready for the offseason, even though the MLB offseason is the slowest of the 4 major sports leagues in the U.S. But this is the kind of big note of a benchmark of the kind of start of the offseason. Other good news is they picked up the club option, the $1.5 million club option on Jorge Alcala for the 2025 season. Last season in 2024, he pitched 58 and 1/3 innings, which was the second most in his entire career. He also had a 3.24 ERA, gave up 40 hits and 21 earned runs. He gave up 8 home runs, struck out 58, while only walking 8 batters. So he was striking out about one batter every inning he pitched. And let me tell you, this guy, that last season, it was absolutely the tale of two halves. Before the All-Star break, he had a sub-2 ERA in over 30 innings pitched. And after the All-Star break, he had an over a 3 ERA in, I think it was 25 to 28 innings pitched. He had over a, no, excuse me, not over a 3, over a 5 ERA. And that averaged out to be a 3 ERA on the season. So my personal thoughts on that is if we can get something in between his first half in this, obviously, if we can get his first half the entire season, that is fantastic. That is, you know, arguably best reliever in the league. One of the best relievers in the league if we get that for an entire season. But I don't know how fully sustainable that is. And maybe it will be more sustainable now that if he can stay healthy. He's had to deal with a bunch of injuries in the past. That's why he's only had the one other year where he's pitched over 50 innings in a season, is because he has struggled with injuries. So maybe that was part of it, is he just couldn't. In the past, he hasn't stayed healthy, so he didn't fully know how to pitch in the later games in the season. So hopefully he can take what he learned in the second half of this year and try to improve on it, and look to be one of the Twins' top relievers. Because I think right now, if you're looking at it, I think it's still Jax is number one, is the best reliever in that bullpen, and Jarren Duran is number two probably. But I think that number three kind of just fluctuated throughout the entire season, and maybe even number two did, with how Duran struggled at times. But if Alcala can kind of stay steady in that kind of low threes ERA, maybe even crack below 3, if he can stay consistently in that, not even have like a sub-2 ERA, but have in the 2s, if he could do that, he might be the second best reliever in this bullpen. Probably in the top 3, maybe even the top 2. So that, I do like that deal for him, because it was only $1.5 million. So it's not a terrible contract if this goes south. So I do like that. And then the last thing is, it's been talked about a lot recently, is on Royce Lewis. The potential move for him to go to second base. Because right now you have kind of a log jam on that side of the infield, because obviously you're not moving Carlos Correa out of the shortstop spot. And then you have 3 shortstops on this roster. And so you would have to play one of them at third base, either Brooks Lee or Royce Lewis. And then the other one, what do you do with, you don't want these young guys not playing in the field. So it makes more sense to move one of them to second base, because they are in need of a second baseman, or an everyday second baseman. And right now, I think that is most likely going to be Royce Lewis. And there was talks of moving him to second base this past season, and he was quoted as saying, if you take a baby out of its crib where it's safe, it's going to feel a little bit scared. That's kind of where I'm at right now. And I personally would agree with that. And I think it was wrong of the Twins to try to move him to second base while in the middle of the season. I think that was a better decision to make in the off season, where he can get a full off season of reps at second base. And Trevor Plouffe, former Twins third baseman, current broadcaster, or we'll see if he's coming back with the Twins TV. But he questioned the move during the season. He said, "Why are we doing this to our most important offensive piece during a time where he's struggling?" So even he was like, "This makes no sense to do this right now," because it was at the end of the year when Royce was struggling the most offensively. So it made no sense to make him more uncomfortable when he was struggling at the plate. But it does make sense to give him more time to prepare for it and have him look to make that change in the offseason. Because again, he is, like I mentioned earlier with Santana picking a lot of those balls. He was one of those guys. His arm is more made for shortstop or second base than third base, than trying to throw, completely across the diamond to third base or from third base to first base. So I personally think if you just look at his repertoire, it makes more sense to move him to second base. Again, this is not confirmed that they are doing this yet. This is just rumblings that have come back up recently in, again, what is the dead of the offseason. So that is just something to be on the lookout for. Maybe the Twins will announce that before spring training, but I think that would be more of a spring training thing to not that would more happen in spring training, because I think then they would say, no, we have him working here with our infield coaches and working with those coaches on moving to second base to confirm it there. So look for that potentially this spring training. All right, so now let us go to the predictions, which again, massive shout out to the Score North guys for the predictions idea. My segment here is not exactly the same as theirs. They have 3 guys that compete against each other. I am just one guy talking into a microphone. So go check them out. I will link them in the description again to their most recent episodes of predictions. I think theirs come out every Wednesday, so theirs come out just the day before this does. So I will, link them in the description. Again, big shout out to them. For the Twins, the Target Field Talkers, again, nothing has come off the board for the Twins, as nothing has really happened recently for the Twins. I thought I had made a prediction about Santana actually winning the Gold Glove, but I did not. So we're going to throw some more predictions into the 2025 season. We should have a bunch coming off the board during the season, because I'm making a bunch about the actual season. So first prediction is the 2025 opening day infield. I'm going to go around the horn and tell you what position these players, or who will be at each of the 4 infield positions. So third base will be Brooks Lee on opening day. Shortstop will be Carlos Correa. Second base will be Royce Lewis. And first base will be Jose Miranda. I don't think they are going to bring Carlos Santana back. I would love it if they did, but that is, maybe another leg on this prediction parlay of they're not bringing him back, because I do think if they bring him back, he will be the opening day starting first baseman. But again, that is part of this prediction of that I am saying is they will not bring Carlos Santana back, and Jose Miranda will be the starting first baseman on opening day. Second prediction, I know I said it was a long shot, but I need some of these long shot predictions just to make them more interesting. Jorge Alcala will have the second lowest or the lowest reliever ERA on the Twins in 2025. So if we, at the end of the year, if we look at the guy, and this is we'll put a minimum of, let's say, 30 innings pitched, 20 to 30 innings pitched as a minimum. Um, so he will have the second lowest reliever ERA on the Twins in 2025, second or first, or the lowest. And then Brooks Lee will finish with an MLB batting average of over 300. He will he will finish April with an MLB average of over 300. And there, I'm putting no minimum on that. So if he gets one at bat and gets hurt, again, knock on wood that doesn't happen. If he only plays one at bat and gets a hit, this counts. So no minimum on his at bat count in the month of April. But if he will finish April with an MLB batting average of over 300. All right, now heading over to the Wolves' den. They played 3 games this past week. They won 2 of them, lost the other. They beat the Denver Nuggets at home. They actually won the 2 home games, lost the 1 away game. So they beat the Denver Nuggets at home, 119 to 116. That was the game with 4:17 left in the fourth. They were down 112 to 102. Jokic had just hit 2 free throws. And in the last 4:17 of the game, they went on a 17-4 run to win 119 to 116. So just showing some absolute resilience there of being able to come back after they blew a lead, and they were up by 10, 15 points. Like the Nuggets were up by 10, and they blew a lead, and it was looking like that was going to be how it was that was going to be the talkers of, oh, the Wolves blew a lead to the Nuggets, and then the Wolves had different ideas, and they ended up winning 119-116. So again, absolutely great resilience shown by the Timberwolves. And that's another game that, again, not 2 years ago, so before last season, I don't think they win that game. Like, I think they might be leading like they were, and then they give up that lead, and they're just like, all right, we're throwing in the towel. And I just think that they're like, that Anthony Edwards having it be his team is like, no, we're going to win this game. We're going to win. What are you talking about? We're the better team here. We're obviously going to win this game. So I think that's the exact attitude you need to have as an NBA player. Is you can win every single game you are playing on a like in a vacuum. You can win every single game you're playing. Obviously, you're not going to win every single game. You're not going to go 82-0. But in a vacuum, you can beat every single team in this league. That's the way I should have phrased it. Is you can beat every team in the league. You're not going to win every game. But again, that was a game that they were going to lose, a couple years ago. So then the next day, didn't love that they had to do this. The next day they had to travel to San Antonio, and they lost 113 to 103. So they had a back-to-back where they were at home, and then the night before they were at home, and then they had to travel to San Antonio. They were also playing a later game because it was nationally televised. So it was an 8:30 start time in Denver. So they didn't get out until super late. And I think I saw a tweet that said their plane left at like 1 in the morning, and they didn't get into San Antonio until like 3:30 or something like that. And so they just looked absolutely exhausted. And it definitely doesn't help that you're going to be up against one of the current best players in the entire league in Wemby. And I know he's got a ton of potential too, but he is already a top tier player in this league. His defensive prowess is going to be, or it is not going to be, it is absolutely outstanding. So I don't love that they have to do that. They have to travel coming off of a back-to-back. Well, San Antonio played on Thursday, but they didn't play Friday. So Friday they were sitting at home able to recover from their last game. So again, good for the Wolves for keeping it close. It was 113-103, but again, that was more of a, in my mind, it was more of a schedule loss than the Spurs were better than the Timberwolves. So moving on to, I believe this was Monday. They played the Charlotte Hornets, and they ended up winning 114-93. Charlotte is not a very good team. They were, after the first quarter, the two teams were tied 21-21, and then the Timberwolves, broke it open in the second quarter. They were up 57-45 at halftime after being tied 12 game minutes earlier. So the second quarter was what really took the stranglehold on, or I should say, it gave the Wolves the stranglehold on the Hornets. Two players from that game. First one was Anthony Edwards. Obviously played great. 21 points in 29 minutes, 5 rebounds. He was 6 for 11 on a field goal percentage, and he was the big most impressive part is he was 4 for 6 from 3. So he was shooting, making 2/3 of his attempts from 3. So love to see that from Ant. And then the other guy, the guy I think actually that carried the Timberwolves that game, was Naz Reid. 26 minutes, he put up 25 points on 9 for 13 shooting, and he was 5 for 7 from 3. He had 9 rebounds, and I believe it was 7 defensive rebounds too. And he had 1 steal and 1 block, and he was a plus 33 too. So he, I give out, game balls for Vikings wins. I don't do that for the other sports just because they play more than 1 game in a week. But, if that's something you guys would like to see, let me know. Back on track here, though. If I did give out like a game ball or like maybe a week ball or something like that, like, I think I would give it to Naz Reid for this game. If we look at the team rankings here, through 7 games, the Timberwolves are 4-3. They are 3rd in their division. They are 8th in the Western Conference. Points for per game up just slightly, 111.7. That is tied for 19th. Field goal percentage, they are 47.8%, which is 6th in the entire league. 3-point percentage, they are 39.8% from 3, and that is good for 3rd in the entire league. From the free throw line, this one is the brutal shooting one. They're at 74.4. That is 24th in the entire league. Rebounds per game, they are 41 rebounds per game. That is tied for 26. So that's another one that they just have to do better as a team. And that one is, way down from where it needs to be on a championship caliber team. Blocks per game, they're sitting at 4.6. That is tied for 20th in the entire NBA. The turnover differential, here is where they are absolutely outstanding. They're sitting at a plus 3.4, which is tied for third. So they are forcing 3.4 more turnovers per game than they are giving up. So that is fantastic because that just means that they are, you know, 3.4 more times per game than the other team are ending. Possessions are ending in the Wolves getting the basketball back rather than the opponent getting the basketball back. Defensively, points against per game, 109.7. That is down almost 2 full points since last week. They are tied for ninth for that. They were, again, right around the middle of the league, maybe lower third of the league last week. Um, field goal percentage against, they are sitting at 45.7%. That is good for 11th lowest in the entire league. The 3-point percentage against is 31.3. That is tied for third lowest in the entire NBA. So they are doing very well from the perimeter defensively. So that is what really hurt them in that series last year against Dallas in the Western Conference Finals. Is Rudy was just getting absolutely cooked up top by Luka, and they seem to have at least somewhat fixed it. Again, 7 games in, still a smaller sample size in an 82-game regular season, but so far it looks good. Their opponents are rebounding at a 42.6% or 42.6 rebounds per game rate. That is tied for 8th lowest in the entire NBA. And then the Wolves are getting blocked 3.4 times per game. That is tied for 2nd lowest in the entire NBA. So there's some very good things here still. And again, it took a season and a couple weeks for the Rudy trade to the chemistry to fully work out for that. So I keep saying give them 10, 15 games for that trade to fully, like at minimum, you should be giving them 10 to 15 games. It may take a little longer than that, but the team chemistry is still being worked out right now. They say that you bond more with people when you have been through like stressful situations or hardships. Well, this upcoming week looks like it's going to be a hardship for the Timberwolves as they play Thursday the 7th in Chicago. Then they play Friday the 8th in Portland, or excuse me, against Portland at home. Then they play Sunday the 10th at home against Miami. And then they play Tuesday the 12th and Wednesday the 13th, both of those games in Portland. So between me recording this episode and next Thursday when I'll record the next episode, they play 5 games in 7 days. That is absurd. So they have a lot of games here that could either go very wrong or very well. I'd say that they could they could pull away here and like they went on I think it was a 16 game 12 game winning streak last year at some point. I can't remember, like early on in the year. They went on just an insanely long winning streak, and I'm looking at this week and I'm like, that could very well be the it has the potential, it has the feeling to be a start of a long winning streak like that. So if we go over to the predictions here, I had 2 predictions come off the board for the Wolves' Den. The first one was that the Wolves would beat the Nuggets by at least 10 points. I need to stop including these by at least a certain number of points in this. Because they did beat Nuggets, but they did not beat them by 10 points. So that one was incorrect. I also said my second prediction that came off the board was Ant drops 40 plus points by this week's episode. And I predicted that one last week. So I said in the next 3 games he will score 40 points. And he did not. So I was 0 for 2 on Wolves predictions today. So that brings my Wolves total up to 2 correct predictions out of 7. And that is sitting at 29%. So that is not great. So I am looking to turn that around a little bit, even though my next 3 predictions are actually pretty bold predictions, but I do think they could all happen. First one is the Wolves win at least 4 of their next 5 games. So before next week's episode, they have 5. Again, they have 5 games. They will go at worst 4-1. So they're either going 4-1 or 5-0. Second prediction is Anthony Edwards has a triple double in the next week. So he will, at least one triple double. So in one of those games, he will have a triple double. And then my last one is that the Wolves will sweep Portland in their next 3 matchups. So again, they play Portland 3 times in the next week. The Wolves will win all 3 of those games. Now, what would be absolutely perfect is if they won all 3 of those games and they won at least one of the other 2. That way, both of those win predictions come off the board as correct predictions. So that is it for the Wolves Den. We will move on now to the Rinkside Rundown. All right, so we are in the Rinkside Rundown now. We've got just the look back for the week. They played 3 home games. It was only their 3rd, 4th, and 5th home game of the year after that 7-game road trip. They did beat Tampa Bay by a final score of 5-3. Faber was able to put one in from the blue line. He was a +3 in 25 minutes and 7 seconds on Friday night. Kirill also had 2 goals and 1 assist. He was a +4 in 23 minutes and 1 second. And Gus Bus stood on his head too. He was 27 of 30. Did have 3 goals against, but 2 of them were on the power play. So Tampa Bay's power play did do well. Maybe that was just the Wild's penalty kill not doing the greatest, but he only allowed 1 even strength goal on Friday night, and they won 5-3. Then on Sunday, they played the Toronto Maple Leafs. It was tied. Hartman scored for the Wild, and Nylander scored for the Maple Leafs in regulation. And they went into overtime, and that was the one where Max Domi thought he was Connor McDavid and could just toss it out to the neutral zone and then beat Wild captain Jared Spurgeon to the puck. Spoiler warning, he could not. Spurgeon took control of the puck and sent it back up where it was picked up by Rossi, who passed it off to Boldy. Boldy went in alone and just beat the Leafs goaltender. I can't even remember who it was at this point. But they did win 2-1 in overtime. And then on Tuesday, just a brutal night on Tuesday because the Kings were in town and they beat the Wild 5-1. Trevor Lewis scored 2 goals for the Kings. Gus Bus led in 4 even strength goals against. He was 23 saves out of on 27 shots. And I realized the other day that Gus is a little bit, not fully to the extreme, but a little bit like Sam Darnold, where he is going to have a bad game every once in a while, like a really bad game every once in a while. I don't think he was great in this game against the Kings. So, like Sam Darnold is going to have a bad throw every once in a while. Gustafson's going to have a bad game every once in a while. So, I think that was his bad game. Like, he has had two bad games this entire season, and that was the one in Philadelphia and then this one at home against LA. So, he's had two bad games and he has been on fire in the other games. So, uh let's go over to rankings here. The Wild sit with an 8-2-2 record. Also sit second in the Central Division and fourth in the Western Conference. So they do hold one of the three wild or division spots. They right now they would be playing the Dallas Stars if the season were to end today in the first round of the playoffs, and they would be the higher seed. So they would host games 1, 2, 6, and 7. If the season ended today, their goal scoring, they're at 3.5 goals for per game, which is 11th in the entire NHL. Goals against, they are 5th in the entire NHL, allowing only 2.67 goals against per game. The power play is sitting at 20%, and it has gone. They have struggled on the power play as of recent, so that is just something else to look out for, and that is something that they do need to just get back on track. Not fully pushing the panic button right now because it was good at the beginning of the year, and then these special teams units are going to have ebbs and flows. So hopefully they can figure this one out and get back. But what really concerns me, and I've been saying this since I started this podcast, their penalty kill is sitting at 62.5%. That is 31st in the entire NHL. So they are awful in the on the penalty kill. They are absolutely awful. They need to fire somebody. Like, they need to change something on that kill. And they, like, honestly, here's what I would do if I'm John Hines. I go, okay, you penalty killers don't want to do your job on the penalty kill. Carell's going to do it. He's doing everything offensively for us right now. You're making him do everything defensively too. So until you guys figure it out, you guys will do it, or he's going to do it. So just light a fire under them. Light a fire under the penalty kill. Make them want to actually be out there on the penalty kill. Like, make them want to do well on the penalty kill, and sometimes it has to be through the tough love, and I'm not opposed to that at all. So especially when it's 31st in the entire NHL. So that it's still impressive to me that they are 31st in the entire NHL on the penalty kill, but they're 8-2-2 on the year. So they are playing very well everywhere else, just not on the penalty. I'm like, would they be, 10-1-1 right now if they were middle of the pack on the penalty? I'm not asking for them to be a top 5 penalty kill, top 3 penalty kill in the entire league. Be league average. That I was asking the same thing for the Vikings offensive line. Just be league average. You know, this penalty kill, you're not gonna be an actual Stanley Cup contender if you have a bad penalty kill or a bad defense. I don't think they have a bad defense. I just think they have a bad penalty kill. So, I mean, clearly they don't have a bad defense if they're only allowing 2.67 goals per game. So, just that the penalty kill is absolutely just frustrating. Like, I'm at this point, I'm just like, if they take a penalty, I'm like, can we do a penalty shot instead of a penalty kill? Because I think Gus has a better chance. Gus or 40-year-old my mom always calls him McFlurry. So 40-year-old McFlurry has a better chance on a one-on-one penalty shot than they do at this point on the penalty kill. So, um, speaking of goalies, let's go over to Gus Bus's rankings. He has a 6-2-1 record on the season. That is tied for third amongst uh, goaltenders with enough appearances. Save percentage wise, he is 917%. Again, that is tied for 10th amongst the all goalies in the NHL. His goals against average is 2.33, which is 7th in the entire NHL. So he is looking like very much cemented in a top 10, not quite a top 5, but a top 10 goalie this year. And that is fantastic. So we look ahead. They are on a road trip here. They play Thursday tonight as I'm recording this, Thursday the 7th at San Jose. It's a late one. It's 9:30 start time. Then they play tomorrow, Friday the 8th at Anaheim. That's another 9 o'clock start time. And then they play Sunday at Chicago at 6 p.m. So they have 3 games that they very easily could win this week. So let's hopefully they, you know, can win all 3 or at least go 2-1 in those next 3 games. Um so my predictions here for the Rinkside Rundown, I only had one come off the board this week, and that was that I predicted that Kaprizov will have a hat trick by this week's episode. He did not, so that one is incorrect. And that brings my Rinkside Rundown totals to 4 correct predictions out of an 8 prediction total for 50% correct. Now, if we go to the 3 predictions I have for this week, I have Kirill. I'm going to double down on this. Kirill will score a hat trick before next week's episode. I'm doubling down. I think he has been he has been by far and away their best offensive player. I think he gets rewarded with a hat trick this week. Girls high school hockey starts today, so I'm going to predict the 2 winners for the girls Minnesota State High School League champions for Double A. I am predicting Benilde St. Margaret's will win the Double A championship for the girls. And Single A, it will be the Orono Spartans. So Orono and Benilde are your 2 girls high school hockey champions. And then I'm going back to this. Well, I'm sorry, I'm repeating predictions here. Actually, you know what? I'm changing this one. I had something about shutouts, but I will change this one, and I am going with the Wild go 3-0 in their next 3 games. So I think that they will beat the Sharks, the Ducks, and the Blackhawks. So those are my 3 predictions for the Rinkside Rundown. All right, now back to our Nordic Report. We're going to Sunday Night Football this past Sunday. So the Vikings get a big win against the Colts, 21-13. And I do feel like that score is not actually indicative of how much better the Vikings played than the Colts, that score should have been more like 30, like 35-13. You know, a couple of bad interceptions by Sam Darnold, one in the end zone and another one where he had Jordan Addison wide open, but was just didn't read all of his routes, it looked like. And that's three different players find the end zone. And the defense did pitch a shutout because the only score was the scoop and score and then 2 field goals by the Colts. So the defense had 0 points against. The defense played very well. So I do have a game ball for this game. I do have 2 honorable mentions. I'll do my top 3. I try to do this like an MVP or like one of the awards at the end of the season where there's 3 nominees and then one of them wins it. So 2 honorable mentions here. First one to Justin Jefferson. He did not find the end zone, but he still had 7 receptions for 137 yards. The second honorable mention, the number 2 player, I have as Jonathan Grenard. He had 2 solo sacks and a pass defended. He came up massively for the Vikings on defense and was really able to help out the offense and you know not letting them stay on the field for very long. So my game ball might be pretty obvious, but he had 5 receptions for 42 yards and a touchdown. That is wide receiver, free 3, Jordan Addison. He, in my opinion, had the best game of any player on the Vikings. And there were a bunch of players that I think are really close there. Josh Oliver could have been mentioned here too with the touchdown, but I'm going to give this one to Jordan Addison today. So that is the game ball for the Colts game. They play Jacksonville this week in Jacksonville. Jacksonville is 2-7 on the year. And we do have some injury reports for this game. Jacksonville has 5 players on their injury report that are all listed as questionable as of the injury report that came out yesterday. So these guys are still might play, might not, but these 5 players are Trevor Lawrence, Gabe Davis, Brian Thomas Jr., Tank Bigsby, and Travis Etienne. So these are like their 5 best, arguably, I should say these are their 5 best offensive playmakers. I don't know really what their offensive line looks like, so I don't want to say their 5 best players, but these are 5 of their best. These are 5 of their best offensive players, but they're probably their 5 best offensive playmakers. And that would be, a massive blow to that already bad Jags defense or offense if those 5 guys are not playing, or even the majority of those 5 guys are not playing. The Vikings have 5 guys on the injury report. They've got 3 guys on the IR, although I did see somewhere that one of them, linebacker Gabe Murphy is on the IR. I did see somewhere that he might be projected to come back for this game, but I'm not too sure about that. They have him listed on the IR on the actual injury reserve. So I'm going to just count him as an injury reserve player. But then 2 guys that are actually on the injury reserve and will not play because they went out and signed replacements for these 2 guys are long snapper Andrew DePaula and kicker Will Reichert. So those 2 for sure will not play this weekend against the Jags. 2 guys that are questionable could come back, would be massive for the defense if both of them or even just one of them one of the two of them did play. Both of them are linebackers, Blake Cashman and Ivan Pace Jr. So those are two of your better linebackers. Again, absolutely massive if those two can play in this game against Jacksonville. Wait till my the prediction segment for me, if you want to hear what I think is going to happen in this game. Vikings team rankings, they are 6-2 on the season. They are second in the NFC North as the Lions are in first. The Lions beat the Green Bay Packers to, kind of stomp down the Packers just a little bit more. Jordan Love does not look good, right? He looks like he is still hurt, and they gave him that massive contract based off of 7 games at the end of last year. And I'm like, I don't want that. I don't like that. I don't think a 7-game sample size, even a 1-season sample size, is enough. And again, look at who the Vikings are playing this upcoming year or this upcoming week in Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence had one really good year and then didn't play that well last year. And he's not playing that well again this year. And some of it might be just Doug Peterson lost control of the locker room. I think that's what happened again last year with Dean Evison with the Wild. Because it's, not exactly, but a lot of the same team this year and last year. And the Wild are a much better team at this point in the season than they were last year. So the Jordan Love, injured, not playing that super, super well to start this year. The Vikings are also the 5th seed in the entire NFC. Despite having the 3rd best record, they are the top wild card spot. The only 2 teams that have better records are the Detroit Lions, who I do think are a better team on paper, and the Washington Commanders, who are playing well, but if you look at their actual, more than just their record, they have had one of the easiest schedules thus far. I do not think they would be 7-2 if they had the Vikings schedule. So those are the 2 teams with better records than the Vikings this year so far in the NFC. Obviously, you have Buffalo, and that I think has maybe the same record as either them or Washington, and then the Chiefs are obviously the best record in the NFL at 8-0. The offense, the Vikings offense, is sitting at 13th in the entire league. They're sitting at 336.3 yards per game. They're sitting at 26.1 points per game, which is 8th in the entire league. And some of those scores are from the Vikings defense, but the Vikings are scoring 26.1 points per game, which is 8th in the entire NFL. They are converting on 3rd down 40.9% of the time, which is 9th in the entire NFL. And for those wondering, that is 36 for 88. On 4th down, they are 3 for 5, which is 60%, and that is 13th in the entire NFL. So they are in the top half of the league for every offensive kind of a fringe top 10 offense right now based off of those stats. And then the defense is sitting at 16th for yards against per game, 331.9. Then points per game, where it actually matters, is they are giving up 18.8 points against per game, which is 7th lowest in the entire NFL. On 3rd down, opposing teams are converting at a 32.4% rate, which is the fourth lowest rate in the entire NFL. That is a success rate. Opponents have a success rate of are succeeding 33 out of 102 attempts. On 4th down, teams have gone for it 17 times against this Vikings defense. They have converted 6 of those 17, and that is a conversion rate of 35.3%, which is good for third lowest in the NFL on fourth down. So they are coming up with when it matters on third and fourth down and when it comes to preventing points. Because I don't care how many yards you give up as long as it is not ending in points. You can give up 99 yards, and if you don't score, then I don't care. Special teams, Will the Thrill is finally not perfect anymore. He is 85% on 87.5% on field goals, 14 for 16. And his long again is still the 58-yarder against the Houston Texans. That is tied for 7th in the entire NFL. His PAT attempts, he is still perfect. He is 23 for 23 on PAT attempts. So yeah, the Vikings do look good. They did get a little bit more back on track against the Colts. And I don't know how far they went off the tracks, but they did get a win. And we'll say if Will Riker does make those two kicks, those two field goals, again, even if they wouldn't have scored on those Darnold interceptions, that score would have been 27-13, which looks better. So, yeah, there was just a couple things from that Colts game that are just maybe slightly things to look out for. But not like the Wild's power play percentage, not pressing the panic button right about now. So for the Vikings, 3 predictions off the board, all 3 from last week's episode. The first one is that I said Dallas Turner registers a sack. And I did clarify that it would be a solo sack. Doesn't matter. He didn't get any type of sack, so that one was incorrect. Did play a lot more, but did not get a sack. I also said Justin Jefferson will have 100+ receiving yards. That part is correct. But he will have 2 touchdowns against the Colts. So the that prediction is also incorrect because he did not have 2 touchdowns. But I redeemed myself a little bit, and I just said I did leave off the points last week, and I said the Vikings will just straight up beat the Colts, which they did. So they just beat the Colts. So that prediction is correct. As for the season, the year total so far, I am 3 for 8 on the Vikings, which is a 38% correct percentage. For this week's predictions, first one, again, I immediately did not learn from any of my mistakes on the other one and my success from this Colts game. I immediately went back and said the Vikings will beat the Jaguars by 13+ points. So they will win by 13 or more in Jacksonville. I also said TJ Hawkinson will score a touchdown in this game in Jacksonville. TJ Hawkinson will score his first touchdown since last season in this game against Jacksonville. And then the defense will score the same amount or more points than they give up this year. So if this prediction happened last week, that would have been correct because they did not give up any and they did not score. And I'm not including special teams as the defense. So field goals kicked does not count against the defense. So I'm basically saying they will either not let up any points and not score any points, or they will score more touchdowns than touchdowns they give up. So the Vikings defense will score the same amount or more points than they give up this week in Jacksonville. All right, as for my totals here on the predictions for all the sports, again, none have come off the board for the Target Field Talkers, for the Twins, because nothing has happened really since I started this podcast. I have 9 correct predictions, 23 predictions off the board. That is at a 39% correct rate. My best segment prediction is Rinkside Rundown. They're sitting at 50%. Then the second best is the Nordic Report, sitting at 38%. And then the Wolves Den is in last at 29%. So I am doing the best in hockey, second best in football, and then the worst in basketball. All right, so I think that's going to actually do it for this week's episode of the 301 show. We're at just over an hour here. I do thank you for joining us for this episode, and if you're still listening now, thank you for listening to this entire episode. Again, massive shout out to the guys at Score North. Their links will be down below. So go check them out. Give them a follow. And yeah, and leave anything else in the comment sections that any thoughts you had about any of my takes, anything else you want to see on this show. Leave those in the comment section down below, and we will see you guys next time. Thank you for joining.